We on Fire Sports Podcast, The Spot, season number 4, episode number 13. Hope you guys enjoyed the weekend that has passed across the sporting landscape as we're now midweek, as we're trugging along into the weekend. And if it's your first time listening, I appreciate your attention and your love. Definitely, We on Fire Sports Podcast. We provide hot fire analysis across the sport landscape. And definitely, if you one of my OGs, I appreciate all the love and the feedback as well. And we had week number 9 conclude across the National Football League this weekend. There was a lot of teams that, in my opinion, put themselves in a situation where no chance at making the playoffs. We're going to go through the full week number 9 slate. And we had one of our second firing of the NFL season with Dennis Allen getting put on the guillotine, man, for the New Orleans Saints, as this team has dropped 7 games in a row after winning the first 2 games of the season. The offense looked impeccable through the first 2 weeks, and they've hit an iceberg, and it cost Dennis Allen his job. The Saints situation is a tough situation across the board because they knee deep in the cap, man, and so it's not an easy fix. On top of that, they traded Marcus Lattimore, shipped him off. He got a new home now up in Washington for the Commanders. And so there's a whole situation going down in New Orleans. Not sure what they'll do moving forward as well. We also, too, had the unveiling of the college team playoff, the 12-team slate, the first reveal of that. And obviously there was a lot of, people, weighing in just across the board. And I had an opportunity to take a look at it. I'll just give you just a quick peek of my opinion in regards of it. I don't think Ohio State is the second best team in the country. They came in at number 2. There's no disrespect to the Buckeye fans and Buckeye Nation out there. I just think that this is a team that, to me, still has to show improve. I just don't think they're the number 2 team in the country. You got Miami undefeated on the slate. They cracked the top 10, obviously. There was a lot of debate on how high they would go up. You got Georgia in the fold, in regards. Obviously, you got Oregon, number 1 in the country right now. I think they deserve that number 1 slot. This team has been playing some good football in their inaugural season in the Big Ten. And so, that definitely was interesting as well. And for me, I've been talking all things football over the last couple of weeks. We had the NBA come back into the fold. Now, 2 weeks into the season, there's been a lot of, things that have caught my attention. Obviously we had the whole Bronny James and LeBron James thing, and I'm not going to get too deep into that. I think that, Bronny James, as I mentioned before, definitely if you're a long-time listener, is that, he's a G League developmental player. He's not an NBA player right now. They obviously did LeBron a favor, the Lakers, allowing him to play with his son, but at the end of the day, especially with LeBron being 39 years old, man, this championship a bust for the Los Angeles Lakers. I just don't think that they're an organization that, to me, values winning like I think they supposed to, especially being one of the big time organizations across not only the NBA but all sports, just in regards. Also too, like I said, I'm gonna roll out my little 10 things and 10 little thoughts that I got on the NBA season coming up. But before I do that, definitely don't forget to check us out on YouTube at We on Fire Sports. Definitely we're going to drop the episode on YouTube. You guys can definitely check that out as well. We're at where podcasts can be, seen at or, jumped in at. And as far as the NBA is concerned, like I said, I got 10 little interesting things that has caught my attention, coming into the NBA season. And I'm definitely going to be taking a look at these things as the season moves along. And at number 10, I got what I call the return of Ja Morant. Now, Ja Morant the last 2 years has been up and down, primarily off the court. Obviously last year he came back off his little gun situation. He got injured. The season was cut short. Memphis is in a precarious situation just in regards because, the West is competitive, man. And this was a team that, a couple years ago, they was kicking butt and taking names. Then they got a little bit too big for their bridges. And their luck has not been, say, the same. Jerry Jackson Jr., He's a guy that, good young player, athletic player. But to me, shoot too many threes. And I'm not saying he don't have a J, man, but at the end of the day, you a big man. You got to give me something in the post. I think Taylor Jenkins and his team, I think this is a real prove-it year for the Memphis Grizzlies. Whether or not they're going to be what I consider a legitimate contender and a dark horse to make a deep playoff run, or they're going to be a team that sink down to the bottom of the Western Conference. So, that's definitely something intriguing. I think Ja Morant, outside the court, probably going to be on his best behavior as much as he can. Obviously his reputation took a hit in just that whole ordeal with the gun situation, man. So we'll see what Ja, man, the Memphis Grizzlies do this season. So far, it's been kind of, okay reviews just in regards to the start of the season for them. They squandered a big-time lead against my Chicago Bulls a couple days ago. But I think as a whole, man, as I mentioned, this is a team that is improvement mode. And so we'll see, what they do for the rest of the season. Definitely going to check in back with them. Then we got what I call at number 9, man, Wemby Part 2. This is the second season for Wembanyama down in San Antonio. I know obviously we've all heard by now, if you haven't, just the news with Greg Popovich, just with a health situation. He's going to be out indefinitely for the San Antonio Spurs. Pop is like that favorite uncle, man. He's just a guy that, regardless of if you're a fan of the San Antonio Spurs, you definitely, have great respect for Greg Popovich, obviously the former Olympic coach. And so first and foremost, man, I wish him well wishes, definitely for Pop, man. Take your time, man, and coming back. You're definitely one of the treasures, in NBA basketball and basketball as a whole. And so, I think with Wemby and the Spurs, I think this is year 2, like I said, of the Wemby experience. They drafted last year Stephen Castle, who I think is a pretty decent pick, say, for them. Chris Paul going over there in free agency, just giving them a veteran presence. And I just think that they're an organization is that sometimes, man, when you basically starting over, obviously in the position they were to draft Wemby, is that it's a step-by-step process. I think year number 2, I expect this team to win more games than they did last year. But I think this team will miss the mark of making the playoffs this season, man. But definitely a team that to me is very, very talented. But I just think that as far as, the roster is concerned, especially in the Western Conference, they're, kind of lacking a little bit. And so we'll see, what Chris Paul brings to the table for the San Antonio Spurs with Wemby and, him trying to get right. So we'll definitely see how that goes. At number 8 for me, and this is a team that I had a feeling, man, this team could possibly win over 55 games in the regular season. I like the chemistry with them bringing back the superstar. And I'm talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers, bringing, Donovan Mitchell, breaking him off, making sure that, he kind of in place. And, this team, man, like I said, I think that they're a good regular season team. Obviously the final litmus test for this organization will be, deep playoff run. But right now, man, they 8-0. And they living their best life right now. It's what I enjoy about Cleveland, what I've seen so far, it's really the chemistry. And, that was a big thing, man, with Garland, man, and, Mitchell last season. It was a big thing as far as the chemistry is concerned. And I just think that they've taken a little bit of a step forward, but I think the verdict is still out. We'll definitely see if Cleveland can, not only get to 50 wins, but possibly get to 60 wins this season. And so I'll definitely be checking back in with Cleveland. And at number 7, this is a team that won the championship year before last. Definitely arguably the best player in the game of basketball right now. And I'm talking about the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic. And I'm a little disappointed in this team. And not from just the play, but the front office. You got Calvin Booth, former NBA player, man, the general manager of the Denver Nuggets. They still in a situation of where they let KCP get out of the door. You got Murray that you still got to, give him a potential extension. And so this team, they lost a little talent. And, in the West, man, it's all about loading up. This team, I'm going to be watching, for the rest of the season just to see kind of if they can get the chemistry with Braun in the lineup now. And, Christian Brown, in the lineup right now for them, starting. I think Michael Porter Jr., he got to be better than just a spot-up shooter. So I just think that this team, for me, they're at a kind of what I call a turning point. whether or not the organization is going to put some resources into this team by making some additions throughout the season to help them rise back up and, eventually try to make another run to get another NBA title, man. So we'll definitely see what cracks off in Denver. The Los Angeles Lakers. Mentioned them a little bit earlier. The Lakers, man, I got them coming in at number 6 on my intrigue list of the season. And for the Lakers, it's really about real or fake. Is this a real basketball team, or is this a team that's just all about trying to make headlines and trying to stay in the populace? Jeanie Buss, it's just a situation with her, man, is that, I have respect for Jeanie Buss. Obviously, she's a female owner. Her dad was one of the best owners in team sports. And so I just think with her, she's in a tough situation because you're trying to appease superstars. And when you do that, you mess with some of the chemistry and the dichotomy of your ball club. And so the Lakers, J.J. Redick obviously in the fold is, new head coach with no real coaching experience. This team, started off first couple of games and looked good. Now this team has dropped, 3 out of the last 4 games, lost to Detroit. And it's just a situation with me is that, it's easy to coach, man, when you come in the league. Nobody really knows your plays and know all that. But at the end of the day, once teams get a scouting report on you and switch it up on you, can you make adjustments? And that's going to be the biggest thing with J.J. Redick this season, man. We definitely see what they do. AD playing AD basketball. I think he's the leader of this team offensively. And so we'll see what the Lakers do, man, moving forward for the rest of the season. It's definitely going to be intriguing. At number 5, I got the New York Knicks. This is a team that brought in Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, obviously, with the trade for Julius Randle, sending DiVincenzo out as well to Minnesota. Tibbs of this team bringing in Mikal Bridges from the Brooklyn Nets. And so, Tibbs and Leon Rose, man, I'll give them credit. They're pushing the chips into the table. Obviously, their biggest competitor in the Eastern Conference would be, in my opinion, the Boston Celtics, obviously being defending world champions. And I like the aggressiveness by the Knicks. But here's the thing, and I'm just going to put this out there. I got a lot of love and respect for Jalen Brunson. I seen Jalen Brunson play in high school. He was, played in high school in the Chicagoland area. Rick Brunson was an assistant head coach for the Chicago Bulls at the time. So I've seen Jalen Brunson from a young pup put in work. So I'm not surprised that obviously, one, his work ethic and just the success he's had so far, without question. But it's a very short list of guys who are at the point guard position, who, what I consider 6'2" and under, that has led a team to an NBA championship. And so, for me, I like the additions that the Knicks made. But if you think you still going to get the output that he produced last year in the playoffs on a consistent level where this guy's going out there and putting up 40 pieces and they actually winning playoff games, I think the Knicks, did well in trying to make their roster kind of more so holy. And so we'll see what they do moving forward. I know Spike Lee is excited about what the Knicks have done and made their moves, man, but I'm going to keep my eye on the Knicks, man, for the rest of the season. And, as we, trug along, man, definitely going to check back in, see what, crack with the Knicks after the first, month or so of the season. Number 4, I got what you call Dallas in motion, and I'm talking about the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas Mavericks last season made the NBA Finals. They ran out of gas against the Boston Celtics, Luka Doncic and company, Kyrie Irving. I think that this ball club, man, they did a good job. Shout out to Jason Kidd, Nico Harrison, the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks. And so I'm not sure, man, if you can get back to the NBA Finals in the West, just how competitive it is. Obviously, they had the big-time addition of Klay Thompson, Splash Brothers breaking up and him going to Dallas. I think that's a big-time move for the Dallas Mavericks. I like what I've seen so far a little bit from the first part of the season. Like I said, we're still very early in the season. I think with Dallas, man, it's just going to be the war of attrition. I think this is a ball club that, definitely if they stay healthy, they can definitely get back to the NBA Finals. But I'm keeping my eye on them, man, because like I said, it's hard to get to the NBA Finals, lose, and then get back again. So we'll see what Luka and them has in store down in the Big D with their season so far. We definitely going to check back in on the Dallas tip. At number 3, I call this one Embiid in Philly. And when I thought of this concept, this happened right before the 3-game suspension by the league of him shoving the reporter. After the report, after the story the reporter put out, there's been a little strife up in Philadelphia about Embiid so far. Hadn't played a game so far this season. We seen Embiid last time we seen him. He was in the Olympics. And to me, here's my thing. If you're in a situation, man, where you're not generally healthy, man, and people see you playing the Olympics and the team that's paying you a good hefty price in a great sports town like Philadelphia, oh yeah, it's gonna be uneasy, my man. And I heard the comments Embiid said all what he's done for Philly, and I respect that. But at the end of the day, Philadelphia is the wrong town, bro. Like, once they consider you a guy that's been kind of slouching a little bit as far as your availability, yeah, fans can turn on a dime on you in Philadelphia, man. And we've seen this story before with other superstars in Philadelphia. And, I think Philadelphia respects Embiid, but they don't respect him like they respect the Dr. J and Allen Iverson. Meaning that guys who went out there, blood, sweat, and tears, and put their heart out there on the court, man. And so, definitely we're going to see how this thing unfolds with Philadelphia, man. I just don't believe, a lot of people think that they're, are a contender to Boston. I don't see it, man. I don't see it right now. And so we'll see if things change, for Philadelphia from a chemistry standpoint. I just think that right now, Embiid is a huge cog in what they're trying to do. And, we'll see what Philadelphia does moving forward this season. Then I got my little California slice, man. My California slice of pie. Got the Los Angeles Clippers, man. Got a new home, new digs in the Intuit Dome. Shout out to Steve Ballmer. It's a great facility, what I've seen. And they're in a tough situation, man, because now James Harden is the best player on your basketball team. And 5 years ago, that would have been cool. In present times, and there's no disrespect to James Harden, he's just not good enough to hold a team down and get a team to a deep playoff run in the Western Conference, man. And so the Clippers, man, they're in a tough situation. They let, obviously, Paul George go out the door. I just mentioned Philadelphia earlier. He's been out, too, for Philadelphia. Kind of shaky on the injury tip. But Paul, I think that at the end of the day, I think it'll work out for him. But his former home, which I'm into now, is, the Los Angeles Clippers. I just think that they lowballed him a little bit. They should have gave the guy the max. Because at the end of the day, Kawhi Leonard day is a number, man. I just don't think that he's a dependable basketball player anymore as far as his health is concerned. And I think that it's gonna trimmer down the entire organization. I don't see this team making the playoffs this year. I could be wrong, but I just don't see it, man, with the Clippers. On the flip side, man, the Golden State Warriors, they're kind of the polar opposite. To me, I didn't have a lot of high expectations for this team coming into the season. Steve Kerr just went out there and said that, hey, look, we playing all 12 guys. We gonna see, who's the guys who's gonna earn the minutes. A lot of people were skeptical on that. But so far, man, I'm liking what I'm seeing. As I'm dropping this right now, man, they playing the Boston Celtics. Definitely probably on Friday edition, man, give an update as far as that game was concerned. But Golden State, they've impressed me so far this season, man. I've been impressed with Moses Moody and just the other pieces that they have, Trace Jackson Davis. And to me, it's all about continuity with the younger players. Steph is Steph, Draymond is Draymond. That goes without saying. I think that Buddy Hield could be a good asset for them. Been shooting the ball pretty well for them so far in his tenure out there in Warrior Land. And so we'll definitely see what the California connection between the Clippers and the Golden State Warriors do. I got the Warriors trending upward. I got the Clippers, just in a situation where I just don't see them making the playoffs this season. Then we got, and I'm going to actually share this number one spot. Because obviously, I have mentioned the Boston Celtics. They're the defending world champions. It's obviously the word out there is, can this team repeat? I definitely think this team can repeat. I think they got the pieces, the length. Joe Mazzulla's a little bit more experienced now. He's a, championship coach now. Jason Tatum, I think he got a chip on his shoulder from the Olympics. Jaylen Brown as well from the Olympic situation being not put on the team. Derek White is, trending upward. Drew Holiday is just that solid as a rock guy. Al Horford is Benjamin Buttons in a basketball uniform. And so I definitely think Boston has a good chance, and they my team. I predicted them to repeat as NBA champions. We'll definitely see if that prediction is correct. But the reason I said I'm going to shed a spot in before I get out of here for my NBA look is that what the hell is going on in Milwaukee? I mean, this team right now, man, 1-6 as we dropping this, man. It has been just a not good situation in Milwaukee. And there's a lot of people that say, well, man, should Giannis leave? Nah. When you light the fire, man, you got to stay in the house if it burned down, man. I just think that this organization, and Giannis has become what he didn't want to become, and that is a diva. And to me, when you switch up coaches from, Mike Budenholzer to Adrian Griffin, the excuse is out the window, Holmes. Now, I will say this. The organization, I think that they needed to level up and get a more athletic wing player, because I think that Chris Middleton, he's been banged up, double ankle surgery over the offseason. I just don't think he's the same guy. I think he can be a contributor for you, but I don't think he that number 2 punch. Obviously got Dame Lillard there, so it'd be more of a number 3 punch, but I don't think he could be a number 3 punch for you. I think he could be a contributor. And so, to me, I think the organization dropped the ball as far as kind of the talent is concerned just a little bit. And I think that Giannis now, he's looking like he got egg on his face, because to me, when they moved on from Adrian Griffin and brought in Doc Rivers, the excuses went out the window for me. So definitely, that's my quick look across the National Basketball Association as we're 2 weeks in the NBA season. Definitely gonna drop a dime, and I'm gonna have them power rankings out there too, man, coming up real soon across the NBA slate. And man, coming up, man, we got the rest of the show as I get into the National Football League in week number 9. We on Fire Sports Podcast Spot. Welcome back. As we dive into week number 9 across the National Football League, definitely was an eventful week as we're now starting to see a little separation between the teams. We're at the halfway mark of the National Football League season. Just seemed like a couple weeks ago, man, we was at the kickoff period of the NFL, and now we're in week number 9, and things are getting a little enticing as we're starting to see divisional matchups coming up, as well as we got injuries, trades on the forefront. So it definitely was an exciting week, and it kicked off last week on Thursday. It seemed like eons ago, but we had the New York Jets taking on the Houston Texans, as the Jets was able to knock off the Houston Texans 21-13. It has been a wild month for the New York Jets. You had, obviously the most recent thing with them after this football game, and breaking news is that they traded Mike Williams. He's out of the door, up to Pittsburgh for Mike Williams. A lot of people speculated that when Devontae Adams got traded to the New York Jets. And this team, they was on a 5-game skid, and they was able to come in and win a good football game against a good football club. And, Aaron Rodgers, he showed up, 3 touchdowns in this football game. I just think that for the Texans, from their perspective, they've been just the walking wounded. Obviously got Nico Collins out, and they just was a team that, just getting Joe Mixon kind of all the way back into the fold. He was a little nicked up. And I don't think that C.J. Stroud, I'm not going to call it a sophomore slump, but I don't think he's been playing the same level of football as he did, during his rookie campaign. And, teams, they scheme up on you. They watch film on you. And so especially with this ball club, I put it out there earlier this season, and I thought that the Houston Texans would be good enough to get to the AFC Championship game out of the AFC South. And for the Jets, really was a game that, a lot of people threw dirt on this football team. They improved to 3-6 on the season. I don't see this team making the playoffs. I just think they've dug themselves a big hole where they can't get out of. And I just think that at this point, for them, they pretty much going to probably play spoil in the AFC. For the Texans, you live for another day. This is a team that, is undefeated at home so far this season. They're only 2-3 on the road this year. And so, you kind of see, I wouldn't call it, like I said, a sophomore slump where you got, rookie, or second-year head coach, and you got second-year quarterback and C.J. Stroud. But I just think that for them, they haven't been playing the best football over the last 3 weeks, even though they've been able to win football games. And this particular week and matchup, it came back to nip them. So we'll see what both these teams do moving forward, but it definitely was a good momentum win for the New York Jets. We'll see what they make out of it moving forward. Then we had the Dallas Cowboys, man. The Dallas Cowboys traveling down to the ATL to take on the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of people, big talk, around Cowboys land that, their season pretty much was on the ropes. They've had some, injuries with, on the defensive side with Michael Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. And in this football game, a lot of people thought that the Cowboys would be able to get to 500 and knocking off the Falcons at home down in Atlanta for the Falcons. But the Falcons was able to win this football game 27-21. I thought that Kirk Cousins, he's been gearing up, man. To me, he's one of those streaky quarterbacks. Once he get hot, he can go on the string and win, 3 to 4 football games for you. I thought that for the Cowboys, obviously the breaking news out of this football game, Dak Prescott, with the hamstring injury, looks like he's going to be headed to the IR, so he's going to be out at least 4 weeks minimum. You got CeeDee Lamb with a shoulder injury. Looks like he's going to be either day to day or week to week. And I think this is it for the Dallas Cowboys for this season. I think it's over. I think Jerry Jones, him not being aggressive in free agency, the Dallas Cowboys sticking to their guns during the offseason, it's come back to bite them. This team cannot run the football at a consistent level. We obviously had Zeke Elliott, be reprimanded for the team for missing meetings. And it's just a lot of chaos in Dallas. And I just don't think that at the end of the day, this is one of the least talented football teams they've had over the last 3 to 4 years. And it's coming back to bite them. Like I said, especially with Dak being out, Cooper Rush obviously steps in Dak's absence. A lot of people thought that Trey Lance should be able to have the opportunity to come in and play some football for the Dallas Cowboys. And that still may be on the forefront. But as far as the playoffs is concerned, I said it a couple episodes ago, last episode, that I just don't see this team making a playoff push at all. And I think, to me, this game was the final nail in the coffin for the Dallas Cowboys, man. For the Falcons, it was a good win for them. Obviously, they're in the NFC South. It's a competitive division. Tampa, they ended up losing. We'll get into that game a little bit, coming up in a little bit. But, for them, they're trying to get a stronghold on this division, man. And so, the other team in that division, the New Orleans Saints, they've been on the big time skids, and I'll get into their whole situation coming up a little shortly. But good win for the Atlanta Falcons, man, as they improved to 6-3 on the season, man. Then we had another divisional matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. As the Dolphins came into this game, they've been on the skids as well. Obviously they're great to have Tua back into the fold. Not sure if the Dolphins had dug themselves into a big hole, but this was a must-win game, obviously, in the division, meaning that the winner of this game pretty much, as far as the Bills is concerned, I think they pretty much have clinched the division as they won this football game 30-27. Josh Allen being Josh Allen, 3 touchdown passes on the game. I think that for the Dolphins, it was a situation where even though Tua is back, this offense is not up to snuff. They was able to kind of, put it on a little bit in the fourth quarter and made it a competitive football game, as we had the kicker, Taylor Bass, hit a 61-yard field goal for the Buffalo Bills to move on in this football game. I think it's going to be the same story with the Miami Dolphins, as I said, about the Dallas Cowboys. I think theoretically their season is over. I think the Buffalo Bills are basically one step forward of winning this AFC East. A lot of people thought coming into this season, there was a lot of questions around this football club. I had questions as well, especially on the offensive end. But, he brought in Amari Cooper. He's been a little nicked up. I think last game he got nicked up in this football game. So we'll see what the Bills do moving forward. As I mentioned again, for the Miami Dolphins, I think it's a wrap for this season, man, as they fall to 2-6 on the season and the Bills improve to 7-2 on the season. Then we had the Las Vegas Raiders take on the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals came into this game, started off slow as they always do, trying to pick up the pieces and salvage the season for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals was able to win this game 41-24. Joe Burrow, man, 5 touchdown passes in this football game. There's been a lot of people who try to put a lot of the blame on Cincinnati failure so far this season. Can't blame Joe Burrow. I think he's been playing great offensively. I just think that this team is soft on the defensive end of the football, as well as they start off slow. And that's the whole situation with Zach Taylor. The last couple of years, this team has started off extremely slow to start the season. Not sure if this season is going to come back to burn them, but it definitely was a huge win for them. as they improved to 4-5 on the season. The Raiders fall to 2-7 on the season. They're another team that basically their season is over with this loss. It's definitely been a long year for Antonio Pierce out there in Las Vegas. I just think it's all over and done with for them. They've been playing the quarterback carousel for the last couple of weeks with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. And so, yeah, I just think at the end of the day, man, they're playing for a top 3 pick in the NFL draft at this point. Obviously for the Cincinnati Bengals, word on the street, we just got breaking news that Zach Moss had a neck injury. Looks like his season may be over as he's headed for the injury reserve. In Cincinnati, they improved to 4-5 on the season. Ironically, the crazy part about it, this is Cincinnati's first home win of the season for them. Like I said, they improved to 4-5 on the season. So we'll see what Cincinnati does. Next up, we had the Chargers taking on the Cleveland Browns. As the Chargers was able to win this football game 27-10, they improved to 5-3 on the season. Justin Herbert had 2 touchdown passes in this game. The defense probably had their best performance all season long, putting the clamps down on Jameis Winston. He had a Cinderella situation last week, but this week he came back down to earth. J.K. Dobbins, 2 touchdowns, man, 85 yards on the ground for him. Quentin Johnston, 118 yards and a touchdown for the Los Angeles Chargers in this football game. And as I mentioned earlier, Jim has went out to Los Angeles and he's changed the culture of this football club and of this entire organization. A lot of people, were having questions about Justin Herbert. As far as him being a durable football player because he's been nicked up over the last 3 or so years. And I'm liking what I'm seeing, for the Browns. They fall to 2-7 on the season. It's going to be a long season for the Browns, man, as they're gearing up. Pretty much looks like they may be in the sweepstakes for the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. We'll see how that unfolds for the rest of the season for Cleveland. As I mentioned, Jameis Winston, he came down to earth for this team. They weren't able to establish a ground game either in this football game and turn it over to football. That's a one-way ticket to lose in a football game in the NFL, man. And as I mentioned, we'll see what both these ball clubs do moving forward. Then we had a game that, to me, unless you fan base, part of the fan bases of these two organizations, it really was a dud game, but it actually ended up being a good football game. And I'm talking about the New England Patriots taking on the Tennessee Titans, as the Titans was able to win this football game 20-17, winning the overtime with Nick Folk with the 25-yard field goal at the end of this football game. And I'm liking what I'm seeing from Mason Rudolph. He's came in, he had a 240 yards and 2 touchdowns, man. But I like what he's been doing. Coming in, he moved on from Pittsburgh, went to Nashville, and it was a situation where it didn't look like, he was going to be in the starting, position with Will Levis being there. But Levis has been out, and Rudolph has came in and did his thing. But the Titans, they improved to only 2-6 on the season. The Patriots fall to 2-7 on the season. I'm liking what I'm seeing from the young quarterback, man, from the Patriots standpoint. Drake May, I think he's progressing a little bit. And this is a throwaway season for the New England Patriots. I think, for them, they have no chance at making the playoffs this season, as well as the Tennessee Titans. Both of these teams will be at the top of the NFL draft next season. But actually, this matchup in this football game was actually a good football game, man. But we'll definitely see what these two teams do moving down the road. I don't expect nothing much from both of these ball clubs. Then we moved on. We had the Washington Commanders, who have been the talk of the National Football League season. Jaden Daniels, Quinn, head coach. This football team, man, they've been winning games. They knocked my Bears off in miracle fashion. I'm still a little salty about that. They took on the New York Giants in the NFC East Divisional matchup. We had the Washington Commanders win this game 27-22. Jaden Daniels, he had an okay game, man. This guy, he's just been really efficient. He hadn't came out and, to me, blew the doors off like, most of the people across the national media would say. He just goes out there and he does his job. I think it's more commendable for him going out with the little rib situation, being able to bounce back and playing multiple weeks. I think that's huge for Washington. Obviously they made the big time deal, bringing in Marshawn Lattimore from the New Orleans Saints. I thought that was a huge upgrade for this defense, which I feel has one of the worst back end parts of their defense in the National Football League and the secondary. This guy's a 4-time Pro Bowler. I thought it was a good investment for the Washington Commanders to bring in his services. We'll definitely see what it does moving forward. It looks like Washington is gearing up definitely to be a playoff team, and they got a good chance at winning this NFC East this season. The Giants, man, they fall to 2-7. It's really been the theme, man. The week number 9 is that, we've got multiple teams now with only 2 victories. Their season is fundamentally over, and that goes to say for the New York Giants as well. I just think that for them, they just gearing up for next season. Daniel Jones is not the guy. We've had, and if you've been a fan of the show for a minute, you know how I feel about Daniel Jones. I just don't think this guy's a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And so we see it raise ugly head again. They did try to make a comeback in the fourth quarter, try to make it a competitive football game. But once again, the Giants fall short, and we'll definitely see what the Commanders do moving forward, because I think they got a real chance at making the playoffs and also locking up the NFC East. We got another matchup, man, between 2 teams that I'm just going to keep it 100. Both of these teams are going nowhere. And we talking about the New Orleans Saints against the Carolina Panthers, as the Panthers were able to win this game 23-22. I like what I saw, man, from Bryce Young. I think at the end of the day, him, getting more experience out there on the field, man, leading this team down the field and knocking off the Saints. The Saints has been a dumpster fire. I mean, this team started off 2-0 on the season. Looked like Derek Carr was on a redemption year. Looked like this team had the best, or one of the best offenses in the National Football League, and they've lost 7 straight. And Dennis Allen is officially the next coach with his head on the guillotine as they let go of Dennis Allen after this football game. I mean, it's been a theme in the NFL with the firings we've seen so far. It's either you play the Panthers or you go overseas and lose. And so, with that being said, both these teams are going nowhere. I think that the Saints, they're heavily over the cap. Not sure what they're going to do with their next move as far as the head ball coach going into next season. I just think that any coach that's very, very intelligent knows that this team with their cap situation is just a rough situation down there in New Orleans. We'll see if they bounce back. We all knew with the Panthers coming into this season that they were rebuilding, just gearing up, seeing what they have on their roster, man, for next season. And looks like it's just going scheduled as planned, man. So don't think a lot about both of these teams moving forward, but we'll see. Then we had the Denver Broncos, man, traveling to Baltimore to take on the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore, they've been looking like the best team in the National Football League, and then they have dud games as they had that game against Cleveland last week. And it's just a situation with Baltimore. They handled their business 41-10. They improved to 6-3 on the season. The Broncos fall to 5-4 on the season. I'll say this about the Denver Broncos, is that I respect their defense. I thought that this team had been playing as a top 3 unit across the whole season so far. But they ran into a buzzsaw, man, and that's the Baltimore Ravens. As I mentioned, they was able to win this game 41-10. Lamar Jackson, man, almost went perfect. 16-19, 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. Zay Flowers with 2 touchdowns, 127 yards in the air doing this thing. Derrick Henry, once again, 2 touchdowns, 106 yards on the game. And it looks like the Ravens have learned from their mistakes, trying to just kind of move in the right direction. They brought in Darius White to join the secondary for this football team that on the defensive side, they just hadn't been playing up to snuff. I think this offense is one of the best offenses in the NFL, but the defense, which I thought with the talent that they have, they'll be a top 5 defensive unit this season. They definitely missed the mark on that, and I think it was a big-time move by them making a trade. And like I said, bring it in. I said actually Tre'Davious White, but I can't, forget about my man Deontay Johnson, another offensive piece for this football team as well. So I like what the Ravens are doing. They're just adding pieces. They're trying to look down the road against the Kansas City Chiefs, potentially in the playoffs. And so I'm liking what I'm seeing for Baltimore moving forward. For the Broncos, man, you guys will live another day. I think that this team is hard. You can see, Sean Payton's imprint on this football club. And like I said, I like what I'm seeing from Bo Nix as well. I think he's playing some good football. He's progressing week by week. And so the Broncos could be a sneaky team, man. This could be a team once we get to the final couple weeks of the season. They still could be in the playoff mix, and we'll definitely see what they do moving forward. Then we had a game between the Jacksonville Jaguars, man, and the Philadelphia Eagles. as the Eagles was able to win this game 28-23. There was a lot of people talk about Nick Sirianni and what he did in the first half of this game, kicking the extra point after a score. Team getting the penalty, going for 2 and shooting up craps. But at the end of the day, man, I just think that the Eagles being 6-2, 3-1 at home so far this season, you ask most Eagle fans coming into the year, man, they would have took that all day long. I just think that Nick Sirianni and this team, they're playing better football. I was on the ship before I had to jump off the ship last season when they crashed and burned. They still made the playoffs last year, but I think this is a better football club. I think Jalen Hurts is finally playing Jalen Hurts football from a consistent week after week situation for him. Saquon Barkley is just a man-child, man. Almost $160 on the ground and a touchdown. We obviously know about the move. You guys hadn't seen that yet. Just hurting, just jumping and hurtling and over a guy backwards. I ain't never seen that from a running back, man. Devontae Smith also pitching in with 87 yards and a touchdown for him. For the Jaguars, man, I think Doug Peterson might be the next head football coach with his head on the guillotine. This team falls to 2-7 on the season. At first in this part of the year for Jacksonville, especially the first part of the year, I thought it was the defense that was garbage and the offense was trying to make his way a little bit. Obviously, Brian Thomas Jr., to me, I think he's been the best rookie wide receiver so far during the NFL season. And so they got potential, man. But the offense now is inept. Trevor Lawrence looks like he's a shell of himself, former number 1 pick, and they broke him off with a big bag of money this summer. He's not been playing up to snuff at all for this football club. And I definitely, as I mentioned earlier, I can see this team moving on from Doug Peterson maybe more sooner than later, as this team is 0-5 on the road. That's a one-way ticket to get you fired in the NFL if your team can't win road games. And speaking of a team that hadn't won any games so far this season on the road, and I'm going to humbly say that this is an organization that I love near and dear. And yeah, I'm talking about my Chicago Bears. The Bears took on the Arizona Cardinals out in Glendale, Arizona, as the Cardinals was able to win this game 29-9. And I just couldn't be even more frustrated, man. I mean, the offense is just in the first quarter. We just give away first quarters. These guys just, for some apparent reason, can't find any rhythm in the early part of the football game. And we've seen this several times so far this season. Defense, obviously make up a little bit for that. But this week, the defense dropped the ball also, man, with just long touchdown runs before the end of the half, easy plays to be tackled, just letting Arizona just run the football all down our throat, man. James Conner having a $107 on the ground. Like I said, Benson got into the party. Demon Machado got into the party. And for the Bears, I'm not going to say that Caleb Williams has regressed. It's just as a whole, the offense is just stuck in the mud. The offensive line hadn't been playing good football. I think the blame goes across both sides. I think Matt Eberflus is finally feeling the pressure of this football town and just being, the head football coach of the Chicago Bears. We obviously came, away from the Hail Mary situation in Washington. That was a total drop of the ball. The Bears being 500, to me, I think this team could easily be at minimum 5-3, even potentially 6-2, dropping the game early this year to Indianapolis. And it don't get no easier for the Bears as we kick off our divisional schedule, man, coming up the next part of the NFL season. So this is going to be put up and shut up time for the Bears. It's going to get real gangster in the next couple of weeks, man, and we'll see what my Bears do moving forward. And then we had another matchup in the NFC North. Most people feel that these two teams might be the best two teams in the NFC North, and I'm talking about the Detroit Lions taking on the Green Bay Packers. And the Lions was able to win this football game 24-14 up in Lambeau Field. The Lions improved to 7-1 on the season. Undefeated so far on the road at 4-0 on the road. Got Green Bay, they fall to 6-3 on the season. Jordan Love, playing in this football game, man. Jordan Love has been a tough cookie so far this season. He definitely hadn't let Packers fans down with his durability. This guy, I thought that they may have taken it easy a little bit with Jordan Love, but they decided to play. Had an interception in this football game, no touchdown passes in the game. I thought the Lions played some good defense in this football game. And the Lions making a big move on their defensive front, bringing in Travarius from the Cleveland Browns. I just thought that, it was a big time move for them. Obviously, he had Hutchinson out. Looks like he may be out for the season, obviously, with the broken leg. I thought that the defense, obviously, too, with that pick six, I think that was huge. That pretty much to me was the play of the game. And the Lions, they looking like the best team in the National Football League. And that's no disrespect to the Kansas City Chiefs, which we'll talk about in a minute. But Dan Campbell, man, this team is focused, ready to play football week after week. Like I said, they're 4-0 on the road, and that's the litmus test for me for these football clubs, man. Are you able to go on the road, especially within the division, and win tough football games? And it's another feather in the hat for the Detroit Lions. And we definitely see what these two teams do moving forward. It's definitely going to be exciting in the NFC North. Then we travel to way out in Seattle, man, as we had the Los Angeles Rams take on the Seattle Seahawks in another divisional slate. And the Rams was able to win this game in overtime 26-20. It was definitely a great situation for Demarcus Robinson. Huge catch in overtime for the Rams to walk off against the Seattle Seahawks. We all know that Seahawks been kind of on the skids, man. This is a team that, started off 3-0 in this so far. And then they failed to one win out of their last, 6 ball games, man. And this team is on the skids. DK Metcalf, he was out. Great game by Smith and Jigma. 180 yards and 2 touchdowns in the absence. I thought he stepped up in this football game. Geno Smith, 3 touchdowns, 363 yards in the air. I thought he played outstanding. But the Rams, they just chipping away. And like I said about Sean McVay, man, this is a scheme guy. This team had hella injuries coming into, the first part of the year after the first couple of weeks to Nakua and Cooper Kupp. Obviously, Nakua got ejected in this game. Man, that was just a crazy situation. But the Rams, they held the course. They was able to win a huge divisional matchup. They improved to 500 on the season. They get their first road win of the season. And I actually like what I'm seeing from the Los Angeles Rams. So we'll see what both these teams do moving forward. Then we had the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Minnesota Vikings, as the Minnesota Vikings was able to win this game 21-13. The whole situation with Anthony Richardson, they brought in Joe Flacco on the Indianapolis side. Joe, looked pedestrian out there. And I think that Sam Darnold did a great job in this football game, man, throwing for pretty much 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in this football game. I just think that the Minnesota Vikings, they were, to me, the talk of the NFL the first month of the season. And so it's finally good to see this team kind of get back rolling a little bit. And so especially to be able to, do that in a situation where, the Colts could have easily came in this game with Joe Flacco. Flacco will throw the ball down the field, but I thought that Brian Flores and his defensive scheme, held them into kind of check a little bit, man. So shout out to the Vikings in this one. We'll see what they do moving forward as they improve to 6-2 on the season, and the Colts, they fall to 4-5 on the year. Then the final slate in week number 9 in the National Football League, we had the Kansas City Chiefs take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This game was played out in Kansas City, and we had the magic of Patrick Mahomes. Throwing for 291 yards and 3 touchdowns. This probably was Patrick Mahomes' best game so far this season. He's always clutch. Obviously it was the big talk where the Tampa should have went for 2 at the end of this football game. And when I was watching the game, I was like, man, take your points. Take your points and chance it. But I started getting cold feet, man, about 2-3 minutes after that thought crossed my mind, knowing that, man, if Kansas City win the coin toss, man, it could be a situation where Pat just go down there and get a touchdown and get them out of there. And that's exactly what happened. This team, the Chiefs, man, they're 8-0 on the season so far, undefeated at home, obviously. And the defending Super Bowl champion, 2-time defending Super Bowl champions. I know this team has had a lot of injuries. Can't forget about Hopkins and the huge game DeAndre Hopkins had with 2 touchdowns in this football game. And it just seemed like, man, the rich just get richer. There's a lot of teams out there that could have traded for Hopkins. And how he get to the Chiefs? Like I said, they're just a step ahead of most organizations in the NFL. That was a huge move by them. And like I said, the Bucs, they're the walking wounded. With Evans being out and Godwin being out, and I didn't expect a lot actually from the Bucs. Not saying that they're a team that, don't fight. I just thought with the injuries, I thought Kansas City had the advantage, but they played good football. Baker Mayfield has, and even though they dropped to 4-5 on the year, they still got a chance, man, in the NFC South, man, and we'll see what they do moving forward. And that's my look across week number 9 across the National Football League. Now we hit the double digits part of the year, week number 10 coming up, and it's going to be some good games across the board in that week as well. And we seeing, teams, as I mentioned, the theme of this week has been we've have a lot of teams that only have 2 wins on the year. And I just think that, now we can cross those teams officially off the board. And that pool now, the NFL of 32 teams with hope gets a little bit shorter as we go into week number 10. And once again, I appreciate all the love and the feedback. I appreciate you. Yeah. We on Fire Sports Podcast Spot.